were just watching that entire thing.
I'm like, what am I part of? I'm like, this is so amazing.
I knew you'd love the dance party. I knew you'd love the dance party.
Okay,
So now you have to go live on Instagram.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. Oh, I was so busy.
He was so excited. I told everybody that was on live. I'm like, you guys, I wish you could see him right now. You were just like videoing video.
Because I was like, this is amazing. And then at first I was like, it's not going to be anything like, it was so cool, Tamra, but I underestimated you. And I take that back because I should have known
by now.
I should know that you're going to bring some excellence. So.
Oh my gosh. So our live experience, if you guys have never tuned in, and honestly, my biggest numbers are in podcasting world, right? So it's global podcast. So ask to join over here, and then I'll be able to have you on the Instagram feed. And it's been going for 3 seasons, which is so rad. And live doesn't necessarily take traction except for really on Facebook. But it's how I get all of my content. So when I teach podcasting, I'm always like, you have to do video because it literally transforms the ability to show up and then create content, evergreen content, because these conversations don't go away. Maybe the top one portion of the topic, but not your excellence or expertise. I asked you to join. Do you got it?
Yeah, so it's coming. So it looks like I'm here and here.
Here you are going to be here and here. There you are. Yes, yeah, okay, you're all the places. Is it echoing on your end?
It's not that bad on my end.
Okay, so Christelle is live on Instagram. So Christelle, tell us if it's echoey for you. If it's echoey over there, then we're going to pop off and just stay focused in these 3 platforms. But for right now, it sounds great to me. So as long as when you're talking, we're good. We're good. All right, you guys. So thank you for joining the Fit and Faith podcast. I was saying for those who were live prior to that, a lot of this has been an evolution. Like since day one, my business started as like Simplify the Heart. And it was talking about alignment and joy and energy and what that looks like in the faith realm. And it has evolved into what FIT now stands for, which is founders, innovators, and trailblazers who are exploring their success. And what their version of success is different to every single person, which is why I am so honored to have you here to talk about your version of success. And I know you are all of the above. Founder, innovator, and trailblazer. So Alexander, the great Gonzalez, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that incredible virtual intro and actual physical intro. So I love it.
Hey, you'll get all the swag afterwards. You guys should have seen the dance moves if you're listening to the podcast now. And this is who you are, which is online. Your online presence is like that. Your in-person presence is like that. And I think a lot of time there's like a discrepancy in that. And I'm curious, has that always been the case for you? Have you been able to step from behind the camera to in front of the camera and been seamless?
So that's a really tough question. So I'm going to have to take it back a couple years.
That's okay. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the childhood story.
Yeah. So as a kid, and I know that we've talked about this, I'm a pastor's kid. I'm a preacher's kid. And my dad, at the height of his success in that space, was preaching in front of thousands and thousands of people. Tim Story is kind of who got my parents their start. So if you can just imagine what that came with. And so my dad would always introduce his family. That was very important to him. And we'd always get pulled up on stage. I'm the oldest of 3. So when my brother and little sister were younger, I kind of was always the one given the mic to give something and say hi to the audience or whatever. Well, my parents didn't know was that I was actually going to take the mic and enjoy it. So public speaking has always been something good, a skill of mine. Now, when the camera transition came, I was actually very nervous. And my first Facebook Live ever, I had no idea. It was 4 years ago. It still did the 3, 2, 1 countdown for those that remember what it does.
I do.
I weighed myself actually at Publix, which is a grocery store we have here in Florida. And it was the best I've ever been in my life. And I was trying to make this transformation, and I had kept everything in the dark in the past. And so this time I was like, I'm losing weight. I'm letting the whole world know because you need to keep me accountable. And I weighed myself and I almost passed out. No joke. If you watch that video, I literally go like that because I couldn't believe I did that in front of everybody. But video from then on became an accountability piece for me. And so the transition kind of naturally happened.
That's incredible. I feel like that should be a part of your speaker reel. Like grab that original video and like have that be a part of it, because I think the evolution of who we are, especially who we are in front of the camera, is really important for people. And that accountability piece, no different than when we were together at Ashley Faye's Embrace Your Ambition conference, which we're going to be again here soon. We're so excited about Dallas. But you shared and she shared that backstory. And I think the backstory is a part of what people need in order to stand in their own form of accountability with where they are today, and realize that we're nowhere near the success space that we want to be, but in that space of always becoming.
Exactly. Absolutely. 100%. And I think that it's also important because I think, and this is why we actually talked about this recently on Clubhouse, tell your story over and over. You always have a new audience. That story should be told in a way that when people hear, they hear me too. You know, regardless if you're someone who was fit and healthy your entire life, or you're someone that was morbidly obese and struggled, a story can be shared that people say me too. And video just really opens up the realm for us that we can connect with so many more people. And I'm sure podcasting has done that for you as well.
100%. And that's like literally been the trajectory of my career. So I think it's really important. And I started out right from video with intention of connecting, but also similar to you, knowing that that was one of my strengths. So why not lean into that? It was actually the audio version of seamlessly speaking that gave me the jitters. I was good behind camera, but how am I going to do this for an hour long? Setting up myself for interviews was the way that I chose to do that and get comfortable. And now I can take the stage for 20, 40, an hour and a half, 2-hour meetings, and I can keynote that entire thing. But it takes practice. It's an evolution of self. And so I want to hear what that evolution for you is like. Like, you knew from a little kid that you wanted to be an amazing speaker, but when were you actually practicing it besides when your parents were putting you on stage for a little bit?
So, I mean, we all have to take, you know, those speech classes and whatnot. And I'll tell you, like in college freshman year, first semester, I took speech, and the lowest grade that I got was 100. No joke. And my teacher told me straight away, she's like, you were gifted. And where most people, like even a mutual friend of ours, Marcus Black, who is a professional public speaker, he almost failed out of speech class. So I learned very early that this was an absolute gift that God gave me. Like, this isn't like, and I hope this doesn't sound conceited. I hope that you guys hear my heart, but my level of skill in public speaking comes at such a supernatural rate that I know it's not me. It's not man. It has to come from God, because I haven't really had that much practice. In fact, it was a desire in my heart from a young age that I gave up on, that I felt was too hard to actually come to fruition. It would take too much work. I didn't have the right connections, and I knew I didn't want to be behind the pulpit, but I also knew that I was called. And so I didn't know how to find that stage, if you will. And it wasn't until around the time actually you came into my life, Clubhouse came into my life, Breakfast of Champions, all these different things, the social media show, that dream was kind of sort of fast-tracked, simply because I hit a little microphone that unmuted my mic and I spoke. And people got to hear it for the first time in a larger scale. And that kind of has absolutely just changed the trajectory of my life.
It truly did. And it was really cool to be a bystander of that, because you had, you know, quote unquote success in the what you were doing on a day-to-day basis for career, for money, for affluency, for your family. But this was like that consistent component to self that you wanted to shine light on. You wanted to stand in the spotlight. But I loved the expressions of like, it's too much work. It's too hard. I didn't have access. I didn't have connections. How do I do this? Right. And insert Clubhouse into my own life as well. And I just think it's wild that an app like this has created trajectory for so many people. Right. But I do think that those are commonplace excuses, right? Absolutely. Commonplace limiting beliefs that like, there's no way. And so when I first started the podcast, it was the same thing. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going, how this is going to work, but I know that God has allowed me this gift. And if I don't use it, then I'm acting in disobedience to what he's called me to. And I'm blocking other people's blessings by not speaking. right? And so I saw you on the virtual stage at first, but when I saw you in person, I mean, the energy, the like electricity, not even energy, because energy can be like calming energy. It was electric energy that literally ignited me from the inside out, that I was like, oh, I'm running with this guy. I'm running with him. And so what do you feel like when you get on stage? Because we know that fear of public speaking is one of the number one fears of all things. So tell me, like, what are you working through? Because there still has to be that sense of imposter syndrome. There still has to be some sort of limiting beliefs. You're not superhuman.
Yeah. So for sure, there's limiting beliefs. I think that, first off, courage can exist in the absence of fear. Like you have to be afraid, right? And so for me, the thing that I've learned, and I'll say I learned at a young age, is to channel that fear, that anxious feeling inside of me as kinetic energy. As like, as soon as I start feeling, I start to like get myself in state, and I'm like, yes. And like, I'll come out and you see me, I shake my booty, I'm going to get on stage. I'm putting myself in state in that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing, because this is the reality, is that for a huge chunk of my life, and still in the past for a huge chunk of my life, but still, I'm not gonna lie, there's moments of struggle. The devil wants to come in and plant things that self-sabotages me. The devil comes in and says to me, oh, you're not really a subject area expert. You're not a professional speaker. Yeah, so you've lived it, but can you teach it? And so these fights come inside of me, because I have, I'm doing it on the stage because I love it, but I'm also doing it because I feel like I have a message. I feel like God has instilled in me my actual superpower, which public speaking, I might be a gift, but my superpower is seeing the greatness in others and helping them step into it. Not being afraid by the light that they they brightly shine, but rather let their light help make my light even shine brighter. And so that's like something that I absolutely love doing. And then in my head, these thoughts start popping in. You're not worthy. You can't do it, blah, blah, blah. And exactly what you said, that's why I was like, because that's exactly it. I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for the crowd. I'm doing it for that one. And, there's a worship song that I love. And the part that they say, and I think I've even shared this to you, that he leaves the 99.
Yeah, Reckless Love.
I love that song. Corey Asbury.
So good.
I love that, man. And like, I love recklessly.
Yeah,
and that's, I am made in his image. So it makes sense that I'm going to love recklessly. And if I don't allow myself to have courage in those moments and to take that anxiety and channel it into excitement, then I'm doing a disservice to that one.
That's so powerful. Now, I know as a recipient of your Reckless Love that you actually walk that talk all the time, from sun up to sundown, and probably in between. You're probably praying and dreaming over other people because of that selfless love that you have. And I love that your background is shining through. So those of you who are listening to the podcast, you can't see the constellation of light that is behind him, but that connective spirit to know that we are all one, right? Like, I want you to unpack it, because I'm looking at it from my lens as of what you were saying. But what does that mean to you, and how are you living that out?
I love that, because first and foremost, it goes back to that Bible verse that we're all, it didn't say we're a selected few are made in God's image. We're all made in God's image. And it's beautiful how diverse his image really is. You know what I'm saying? And so when we fully understand that, and another thing that I've learned pretty early on in life, listen, I won the lottery when it comes to parents. Like I really did. I won the family lottery. Like, I am blessed beyond measure. It can bring me to tears. Like, every moment I think about it, like, that is such a motivating thing for me, because I'm recreating that with my own kids. And I also want to recreate that for those orphans out there, if you will, people who aren't necessarily orphaned, but they never felt a part of something. They never felt that family. They never felt that love. And so I have to love freely. Like, it's part of the air that I breathe. I have to see the goodness in others. I have to, if I see someone, I don't care where we're at the grocery store, we're driving, I have to stop and say whatever it is that they energetically expressed to me that put a smile on my face, that happened and why. Because you know what? It fills my cup in a different way. And you know what's actually selfish about it? Is because I love so recklessly and so freely, I am loved recklessly and freely. And as someone who struggled with self-love and self-doubt, that is the best feeling in the world, to literally look around and think, gosh, I have so many people that love me, so many people that want me to win. And it all happened when I started loving freely and forgetting about the judgment that may or may not come with being uniquely me.
And when did that, or how did that transition occur? Because that's what I was wondering. I'm like, have you always been like that? Or was it a part of, as you learn to love you, you learn to love others?
Yeah. So the reality is that I was a happy-go-lucky person the majority of my life. I've always been funny. I've always been well-liked. I've always been likable. But there was a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-hatred. There was lots of chains from my past that held me back. And it was actually a moment. So if anyone's ever read the book, The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins, she's like one of my heroes. I heard her speak. I immediately put into practice what she talked about. And that changed my business, like literally from one day to the next, like tripled my business within 60 days of hearing her speak.
Wow.
And that was unbelievable. So I went 6 months later to hear her speak again. And she chose me to do one-on-one coaching on stage in front of everyone.
That just gave me chills.
And I manifested it. I knew that she was going to pick 3 people. I started saying it. I was on Zooms with hundreds of people on my team. I was on the mic with all the leadership the night before. I'm like, she's going to pick me, blah, blah, blah. She picks me. And then she starts asking the tough questions. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold on.
We're getting a little deep here. This is a little, we don't talk about that part of my life. That's the, and in that moment, and I'm someone like, I'm a big believer that when you go to any type of event, self-development event, church event, whatever it is, you play full out.
Yes.
You listen to the people on stage, you participate, you give everything you have, because that's when breakthrough is going to happen. And I teach that to my team. And here I am in front of people, in front of 3,000 people of my closest friends. And I decided, am I going to be the person that always preaches play full out? But then when faced with the chance to actually really play full out, I wasn't going to. And I decided I have to play full out. So when she asked me in front of everyone, and trigger warning, and I don't want to take it down this path, but are you a victim of sexual abuse? And my answer for the first time in history in front of people was yes. And when that yes left my mouth, I'm not kidding, I physically felt like chains rip from my back. And I know this sounds weird and woo-woo, but it's woo-woo and I'm weird, and that's what it's going to be.
It doesn't. And we parallel so much in this story. So I love
good.
It.
And slowly but surely, people one by one started standing up until the entire audience was standing up with their hands extended out like this. And I felt the physical manifestation of love. I felt God's presence like never before. I felt him saying, son, I have you. I like release, because for almost 30 years, I hid this. For almost 30 years, I kept it in the dark. My family knew, my wife knew, there were certain people, but to publicly say something that I was still at 36 years old ashamed of, even though it had nothing to do with me, it was not my fault. And then to be walked through that by Mel Robbins on stage, and then her tell me exactly how to anchor myself to moments and memories in my life that bring me joy, and how to block out that negativity. And the chains are falling off as love is being poured in. At that point, I realized I am special. Wow. I am powerful. I am divinely and uniquely made. And I have to step into all of that, the black and the white, the good and the bad. I'm a mixture of all of it. I have to own it, put it to the light, because as long as it's in the light, it will never have power over me. It's when we keep it in the dark, when we keep it in the silence, when we keep it in secret, that the power is over you. But the second I brought it to the light, the chains were gone forever. And now I know I got to bring it to the light.
Yeah. And I think this is like a series of experiences that people need to witness, bear witness to, and embrace. And I love that you're saying, like, in those experiences where there's a lot of people, you can feel hidden, right? Like you can be like, I'll just sit over here in the corner. But that playing full out is a part of sharing your message, is a part of sharing your story. We started this conversation about like speaking on stage or being on a podcast, or like, what does video feel like? But all of those things are a part of the onion layer that is released when you peel off that first component of protection, because we've protected ourselves for so long, generally subconsciously, without even like having to bear like words or language to it. I was also sexually abused and didn't share about it until I was almost 30. And so it's very similar. And when I released, it wasn't actually until I released the book, which I co-authored about that shame, that I felt that breakage, that bondage experience where it was released, because it was sealed, that this is no longer in me. It's actually sealed in this thing that is not a weight anymore, but instead a life giver, right? To be able to give life from what was the chain, that brokenness, and stand in the freedom. But it took me living full out, right? And so it's so important. They can't hear me on Instagram. I hear you.
But can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear the most important part of this story?
No. Because that's weird that they can hear one and not the other.
That's awesome. Well, they hear she is not being heard. That's okay. We're here for the podcast and here for Alex. So enjoy Alexander. Follow him on all social media platforms. But listen, so I think it's just so critical that people hear this part of the message and recognize that it takes that moment of release to say, it's not about me. And even in that moment, you were saying, I'm in front of 3,000 people.
Right.
And I could clam up and say the lie, and then that lie becomes your identity. Or you could open that first layer and say, what happens? What's going to happen? And she triggered the ability for you to do that anchoring. It's crazy, by the way. I don't know if you listened to Glenn's Rise and Grind show this morning, but he literally had a Mel Robbins video play. And so I'm like, this is weird. Either I now need to manifest meeting Mel Robbins, or it was just so intentional because she's brilliant. And so talk us through now your understanding, because even though somebody taught you the anchoring and the release of, how do you do this consistently, and how do you help people on your team do this?
So it's a great question. So what's cool is, so Mel Robbins is just, first off, a genius, and she operates in her genius. And that's what I love about her. Like, it takes chutzpah to ask a man on stage that question. And I was a little bit like, wow, this lady, like, she's got some guts. And so I'll forever be grateful, number one, for someone who is willing to ask the tough questions that ultimately led me through breakthrough. But what I was talking to her before was my love for my children, right? Well, what she didn't know, come to find out, was that I almost didn't have children because of what happened in my past. I didn't want to necessarily bring children into this world. And my wife and I kind of had that discussion pre-marriage. And so we were together 10 years before our oldest was born, married for 7 of those 10 years. When we decided, and let me tell you how God works. The month we decided to get pregnant, we were pregnant. I was like, maybe it doesn't, work, because we were practicing, y'all. We just weren't making. And so I was like, maybe it's not going to work. And that first month, boom, we're pregnant. And I know that's not everyone's story. And so I'm not trying to be insensitive, but that is our story. And I can remember laying in that bed the day my daughter was born, and I'm in bed with my wife in the hospital bed. So we're squeezed in, and Sophia's laying in between the two of us. And I kiss her on her head, and I look at my wife and I said, why didn't we do this sooner?
Wow.
And so what I was almost afraid of, because of what happened in my past, ultimately becomes my favorite role in life, and that's being a father. So what Mel Robbins did was anchor me to that moment. Wow. Anchor me to the moment of, why didn't I do this sooner? This is so good. Why didn't I do this sooner? So when fear, tries to sneak in, when the self-doubt tries to come in, when my past tries to hold over me, because sometimes we can be triggered by certain things that we see, and all of a sudden it's like, and it grips us. I remember, why didn't I do it sooner? Why didn't I go for it sooner? Why didn't I jump without that parachute? Why didn't I just say yes? And so that has been the best lesson. And so does it happen every time? No. But this is the key. And I was just this weekend with Joseph McClendon III, incredible speaker on stage, Tony Robbins' right-hand man on all his stages. And he talks about where he lived. It was 2 lanes, 1 lane in, 1 lane out. And there was these light poles ever so often. And yet on this street, so often where there are accidents where someone would hit the light pole. And it's like the light pole's this big, the space in between light poles this big. Well, so why are these people hitting the light pole? It's because they're saying the light pole, the light pole, the light pole, the light pole, and they're focused on the light pole and they crash the light pole. And so what we have to learn is not to never focus on the light pole, because unfortunately the light poles are going to rear their ugly heads in our lives. But how quickly am I realizing I'm looking at the light pole, where my focus goes, energy flows, go to the space. And it's learning that to remember, why didn't I do it sooner? Go to the space. Light pole, light pole, light pole. Why didn't I do it sooner? Go to the space. And every single time I say light pole less. Every single time I spend less time focusing on the light pole. It doesn't mean it goes away forever. It's a constant transformation. But eventually it stops being a light pole. But light poles never stop showing up in our lives. It's just how much we focus on them.
As you're sharing that, obviously I have this visualization of what's behind you, and I am thinking through like how that can also happen, not just with the distraction, but people could actually be the light pole in our lives, right? And whether healthy or unhealthy, we are not meant to fully collide with them. Right? Unless they're your spouse, we could have that conversation later. Right. But it's the knowing that like sometimes we distract ourselves so much from our mission, from our gift, from the thing God intends for us to do, that we think if we got closer to this light pole, that our mission or our vision would then be ignited. And I think that there's so much importance to like connectivity. But when I'm seeing this constellation, it's the knowing that like we can be energetically connected, or as Glenn Lundy, Laura Wild, all these people are talking about quantum physics, right? We can have quantum entanglement with someone, but it does not deter us from the thing God inquires for us to do every single day, and will continue to create space for, regardless of our distraction.
I love that. And kind of touching back onto the backdrop.
Yeah.
Because, so first and foremost, this is sacred geometry. If you look into anything in sacred geometry, it's really beautiful. But there's something within sacred geometry that there's kind of a cohesiveness within all organisms on this earth, be it plant, be it animal, be it human, that we have a certain connectivity all to each other. So it's a really beautiful concept. But it's understanding, again, and I it sounds funny, but I'm going to say it again, but it's something that I think about all the time, because I am flawed. The old Cherokee proverb of the two wolves inside, which wolf will I feed? Sometimes I do feed the bad wolf, and sometimes I say things or think things that aren't really who I am. And so I have to realize we're all made in his image. Even when that person cuts you off in the line, even when that really rude person is treating someone else rudely, because I'm not that old school person that back in the day, I don't as much anymore, but I'm going to arms, and causing a scene over someone speaking rudely to a server.
You do.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how you're going to talk to somebody. Like that's not necessarily benefiting anyone either. If we stop and think, they're made in God's image. I'm made in God's image. I know my flaws.
Yeah.
Their flaws are just showing themselves right now. Lord knows there's times that my flaws show, and I don't care to be judged.
Yeah.
And so when we understand we're connected all through that, we're connected by the fact that none of us are perfect. We're all striving to do the best and live the best that we can, and operate through love, in my opinion, the highest vibration that we can operate through. What we're going to do is raise the collective consciousness. We're all going to be better. And it, like, especially in a time right now with this division, and it's so heartbreaking to me seeing friendships and partnerships and everything, because people are on one side of the coin, and this rhetoric that we have to pick a side, that we have, it's just, there doesn't have to be sides. We don't have to be against each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no different. Again, back to this picture. I'm going to have to incorporate this picture somehow for the people who are listening to the podcast, but there is two polar opposites, right? Existing, yet still connected. And that's the component of humanity that we have to stay in, that conscious collectiveness of, I see you, I might not agree with you, but I still see you. And we have this, like flesh in common. And therefore we are still one. And I really think, even from like a character perspective, even from some of my best friends who I might not necessarily align with on their perspective of spirituality or their experience in religion and definitely in politics, is the knowing that like we all make up the character of who God is. We all make up his face. And so without them, I don't know him.
Excuse me.
Right. And so I have to challenge myself to say, who are you in this person? And how can I recklessly love this person with regardless of what their actions are? And this is, I think, where forgiveness is rooted, is to say it's generationally probably not even that person's fault.
Right.
And so let me first release that. And then secondarily say, again, in his image, I will pursue the truth without necessarily having to create a light pole in your life that you're going to run into.
100%. And, just to kind of piggyback on that, oh gosh, I feel like we're back on Clubhouse. But to dovetail on what the reality is when we kind of take that viewpoint of people and we, empathy is something that we're lacking in this world. And the difference between empathy and sympathy isn't just feeling bad for someone, it's feeling someone, it's feeling what they feel. If we stop and think, where could this be coming from? How many of us have ever been in a moment where we react in a way that afterwards we are mortified? We are like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just act like that. But then you feel in the moment like you have to stick to your gun because you already started it. So in your
parenting, parenting as an entrepreneur, as a business partner, as a wife, all the things.
You're like hitting the brakes in your head, but you're in your heart, you're in it. You're here to finish what you started. And so we have those moments. I think often, maybe that's what they're going through. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're having one of those moments that in their head, they're telling, screaming, brake pedal, don't. But they can't stop themselves. Lord knows I've been there. So let me not just judge them. Let me see. And this is something that's weird, right? I like to think this, like, let's see how strong the gifts God has given me. Can I redirect? Can I shift the energy? Can I bring light and love into this situation? Can I take that frown and, like the cliche, turn it upside down? Like, can I like it's almost like, okay, I know what I'm going to say. It's on. She's upset, but it's about to change. I can't wait. And you get so excited in that moment.
Oh, that's why you and my husband get along so well, is because that is literally my husband. Like, if the bank teller is having a pissy day, he's like going to say every joke possible to like make her bust a laugh. And then she's like, shoot, I was just a total jerk, right? I was a bad human in that moment. Yeah. And that's not the intent. The intent is just to release that tension. Like, because we carry those light poles. It's almost like you run into them and then they're dragging behind you. Yes. It's not a leave it, like a crash and burn, right? Like
a crash. The whole thing on this.
I'm in. We need to tag him in all the things. Exactly. Give credit where credit is due.
100%.
But I agree. And you did that for me, even in a moment where like I was super confident. I knew exactly what God had given me. I didn't know how it was going to come out when I was about to go on stage. And you were just like, let me pray for you. Right. And it wasn't necessarily that I was combating you, but I was combating the enemy in my mind. And so I think that that's everyone on every given moment. And the fact that you lived like I did, happy-go-lucky, likable, probably always wearing a smile, able to take the mic and act like life is perfect, great family, all of that is my story. And yet I had those moments, those light poles that I was dragging, those chains that were keeping me back from the ultimate purpose that I knew God had me for. And so I believe that you on stage, right? This is stage. The experience that we had in Dallas will be another stage. What we experienced in Denver is a stage. Like, they're everywhere. But I was with someone recently and he was telling me his story a bit more intimately. And he was talking about stages. And he's like, I know God has called me to be in front of millions. And I said, you're definitely called to go to the nations. Everyone is called to go to the nations. What does that look like is very different from one person to the next. But I said, can I just hold you back real quick? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, right now you're speaking to the nations in this one-on-one coffee experience that you don't think anybody else is listening. But guess what? When we leave, I'm about to get on a podcast that thousands of people are going to download. Right. They're going to hear what you just deposited into my spirit through me.
Oh, good.
And so you don't always know. Mel Robbins didn't know when she was giving you that access point, how many tens of thousands, millions of people, nations that Alexander Gonzalez was going to touch. And here you are.
100%. Just to give for anyone listening, to quantify this, my ripple effect has now officially reached over 50,000 people in 20 different countries. And it all started because I put into activity the steps that Mel Robbins taught. And then when I saw her again, I was open to make the necessary change. And I think that that's something that's really important as well, because we're all going to suffer with things. and you know, again, this last weekend, hanging out with 50 Cent, you know, perspective, he was on stage, but I was there. You know, he said something that was 100% like, and he said, depression is a luxury. Okay. And I don't have time for that. So let me just kind of break that apart, right? So he's telling the story of his childhood. Single mother's 15 years old when she has him. She's, you know, an entrepreneur, you know, in her own right, you know, maybe a street version of an entrepreneur, but she's an entrepreneur. She's hustling.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? They got
every day I'm hustling.
Exactly. They drove a caddy, you know, like, because she was good at her job. I don't really know. He didn't go into details what her job was, but he said she, you know, did some, you know, and then she was murdered at 8 years old. This single mom running the streets, selling who knows what, ultimately gets snatched away, and he moves in with his grandparents. And his grandparents had 9 children of their own, his mom of which was the oldest. So when she passes away and he moves in, there's still 9 kids, him being now the youngest. And life was tough. But look who he is now. He has the #1 television show, Power. He has Raising Cain, which is the #2 television show on Showtime. He just sold vitamin water, not just, but recently sold vitamin water for $4.2 billion. His very first tour as a rapper, he made $36 million. And, you know, where do you go from a kid whose mom gets murdered? You move in with, you know, a low income, barely have anything, to reach what you've reached. Have you stopped? Does it affect you? Do you feel bad? Are you sad because your mom died? Did you see some things that you probably should? 100%. He saw all of it. The gambit was there. Everything was there. But he decided he didn't have the luxury to be depressed about it. Now, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I have a master's in psychology. I'm not at all minimizing abnormal psychological disorders. I believe in them. Work with your, you know, work with who you're working with and figure it out. But stop and say, is this clinical? Is this something that's actually something that I cannot control? Or am I giving myself the luxury of not reaching the potential God has for me because I'm focused on the poles around me? And when I realized in that moment when he said that, I'm like, dang it, I have a tendency to look at the poles and allow myself the luxury of being depressed, wallowing in the fact that the pole existed and I hit it, as opposed to saying, I don't got time for that. I hit the pole this time. I'm not going to hit it as much last time. You know, next time I'm going to look away quicker. Next time I'm going to turn because this and this. This is a thing that I've learned. If repetition is the mother of all skill, praise is the father. And so if you want to develop a skill, yeah, you got to do it over and over. Public speaking is a skill. People are a skill over and over and over and over. But when you do it, you got to be like, you just did it. You just crushed it. That's right. Give yourself your own high five, jumping up and down. Bro, did you just get off that stage? Yes, you did. Because now I'm repeating the skill. I'm praising myself for the skill. Think about children. You have kids, right? The first time your eldest said ma or da, whatever their first word was, were you like, you said it wrong, it's mother? You know,
no. Well, now I do. Let me tell you a quick story, because I do. My kiddos are getting older, 6 and 8, and they're hearing that everybody else calls mom and dad, and they call us mama and dada. And so they tried to transition that name, and I'm like, nope. I don't know who you're talking to, but it ain't me. And they're like, well, when I get 13, can I call you mom? This is embarrassing. And I'm like, oh no, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. But you're so right in the fact that, like, you still have to lean into those experiences. Otherwise, you're stopping yourself, and you're in that loss mentality. You're carrying it.
Right. 100. And just like a baby, when we're learning to walk, we start by crawling. We celebrate even just the scoot. We celebrate the head up. We celebrate the entire process. But then when we're learning how to walk in business or learning how to walk on whatever skill you're learning, we get frustrated with ourselves. When really we just got to stop and celebrate every single step along the way and keep repeating those steps. Celebrate, repeat, celebrate, repeat, celebrate, repeat. And now you've reached the skill. And so, anyways.
Well, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking of the interjection of the enemy, right? Because shame is deposited. And that is literally like my mission is like to obliterate shame and activate purpose. And so shame is injected in those times that celebration does not exist. Because I was never celebrated after I was sexually abused because it was a secret. Right. And so when we bring things into the light, people have an ability to then shed the me too, like you started this entire conversation with, and it makes your light that might be so dim at that point, have that illumination factor all over again. And that's where God wants you to be, right? Like he wants you to be illuminated for the kingdom, but shame. It's like blanket, basket, over and over again on this light that is so beautiful. And so if we can embrace that and do exactly what Alexander does every single day, and that's depositing the ability for somebody to remember their light and flip it back on.
Ooh.
You're a light flipper. You're a light
flipper. I love that. Yes. And I love what you said. Remember that they have the ability already within them, because we all are born lights. You know, and we're, you know, I always think of you guys, I love the show Friends.
Oh yeah, how could you not?
Like when Phoebe went running with Rachel, and she's like running with like a kid, and she's like, this is so much fun, and Rachel's like too embarrassed to walk with her. It's like, what, to run with her? When did we start caring so much to be so bright and so free and so, you know, turned on? Well, you know what I mean? Not that way, guys.
We're married, get over it.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? When did we flip that switch? And how do we flip it back so that we stay with that childlike innocence and beauty? Because we are his children. At the end of the day, we are forever his kids. And I'll tell you this, I still call my mom mommy and papi. But that's how we say Latino. And I still will say sometimes daddy. No joke.
Love it.
I'm like, daddy, can you? And I ain't got no shame. And my kids better be 40-something years old to be calling me daddy. And I will always be their daddy. Like, I love it. I love it.
I do too. As you were saying that, like right before is this expression of, golly, my whole brain just went to pieces with daddy.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, sorry. Wait, what just happened? That's awesome. No, but I think you're right. And I think that there is an evolution. And the one thing that I know what it is, the word, right? You said, why and when did we let go? And how, why, when, and how? Why did you let go is the shame. When you let go is probably the season that experience happened. And then everything thereafter became a light pole rather than the road, right? The road ahead. And then the last piece is what can we do now to fix that? And I don't know the Mel Robbins anchoring system, so I'm going to look it up right after this. But the next part is, I believe that illumination factor. And I think if we just anchored into that understanding of joy that I know is so a part of who we are, it's on everything that you do. It bleeds out of you. You create it, right? You're a joy creator. And so I think that if we could tap into joy feels like a child. Yes. It's not happy. Happy feels subsurface. It feels like unattainable on a consistent basis, or it feels fleeting. Like I can feel happy right now, and then I'm going to go back to that experience, or I'm going to go back to that mentality. But joy, which we know is innately ours, because if we're made in an image of a joyous Father, then we have it. That's no difference than the light. But the component of joy that we can then share out based on living a playful life. It's you and me shaking our booty on the stage, so that people are looking out and they're like, is this uncomfortable for anybody else? I kind of want to dance with them. Right. And then we get them to that place where they're like, okay, nobody's watching me. They're watching the crazy person up on stage and they have no shame. So let me have no shame too. And
I have to show this analogy right now.
Let's hear it. Oh, I'm so excited. You guys, if you're listening and not watching, you have got to go to the live at minute 44, 2, 7, 8, 9. Oh my gosh. I'm so curious what he's about to do. I hear.
So sorry. I'm just like,
I'm so excited.
You're like literally saying things that I'm like, I have to get. So I went and got 2 lighters.
Okay.
Because this is the thing. This is a quick little analogy, because oftentimes I agree with everything you're saying so full on. And someone might be listening thinking, well, how do I find that joy? It's real easy to just say, be joyous, but how do I get that joy, right? So here we have 2 lighters. One's going to light. The other one's not lit, but look at this one. As soon as I bring this lighter closer, this one, you can't see it, but it actually is lighting up.
I see it.
Do you see? Okay,
I
it's
see
lighting
it. It's
up.
connected without you even pressing the button.
Without it, it's connected. Do you understand that that's what, when you want that joy, when you want that fire, and you can't find it within, go find the people who have it. Surround yourself with those people, because at first, it might just be a little light, little dim light, but it shines brighter, and it goes brighter until you're illuminating more than you ever thought that you could. Just by surrounding myself people. That's what Clubhouse did for me. Yes. Did Clubhouse give me the opportunity to use my voice like never before? 100%. Did Clubhouse give me the opportunity to be on stages with people that I never thought I'd have the opportunity to be on stages with? 100%. But Clubhouse brought me closer to the fire. It brought me closer to the people who were already brightly shining, and that, like you and Gary, who are silent mentors of mine. I mean, we are actively in each other's lives, but I view you as mentors because I want to emulate your behavior. And I just said this yesterday or today on Clubhouse, the difference between a coach and a mentor. A coach can show you how to get there. A mentor has already been, and you guys have been through it. Part of you guys are a beautiful couple. Yes, inside and out. You can, physically beautiful. That's not your beautiful. Your stunningness is in your godness. That is the stunningness. That stunningness lies in how you've put God first in your family. Have you put God first in your relationship? Have you put God first in your marriage, in your business? And I mean, literally put God first, fill in the blank. That's what's stunning. That's why I deem you guys mentors. And that's why I am so grateful to have people like you that light my flame, because I can now be as bright as I want. And that's the power of it.
That's such Mel Robbins it's such an amazing analogy of vision. And I'm a visual learner. So that is just deposited into my soul. I will not forget it. And the word that you're saying, as you're saying that fire is ember, right? Be the ember. Be the ember, because what happens is, like, we can be responsible for our flame for sure. But there's also the component that, like, some days I'm dim, right? And so you have to know that, like, the one mentor, the one thing that is steadfast, never changing, is the ultimate fire starter, which is God himself. And that's where, when we talk about fit in faith, right? Founders, innovators, and trailblazers, the reason that they have quote unquote success, the reason that they have this ability and this electricity and this connectivity is because they're aligned. And we have to stay aligned to the fire for us to have the ability to ember out to other people. Like, get close, watch out, because if you get too close, you're about to catch on fire, right?
Ember out. I love these. I feel brands coming.
I'm in. Ember out, Alexander the Great and Tamra Andress.
Yeah, ember out. I love it.
It's so good. Oh gosh, Alexander, today has been incredible. You are a human that is just worth getting to know. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. Like, I want to know the more layers. I can't wait to meet your wife and your kids. One final thing that I want you to share, because it was something that was super impactful to me, beyond the health and wellness journey that you've been on, the community that you serve in that regard, the traveler that you are, because I also share in that, is this tiny little pin that had a really big impact. And so I am fashionable, and so is Alexander. He was wearing some Louis at the conference we were at, and he was just wearing them so humbly. In fact, I actually have them on video of him just like bouncing his foot while someone's on stage. And I'm like, look at those shoes. But in the after part where we were doing that special time of prayer, I remember seeing this tiny little rhino on his lapel. And I just was like, that's a rad pin. Like, I don't know what that is. Is that your like Alpha Sigma Kappa, whatever? I have no idea. I'm like, tell me about the rhino. And so I want a rhino pin. I think that you should brand these and create your own. Tell me all about it.
So Scott Alexander is an author that wrote this very short book. I think it's 94 pages. I just gave my last copy away. It's like one of the things that I do. I'll stock up, and then I'm like, oh, you need this book. You need this book.
I love that.
And what's really important about the book is the whole book is called Rhinoceros Success. And it gives this kind of mentality that there's different types of people. There are cows and there are sheep. Sheep just kind of, follow willingly. Cows, we think about what cows do. They sit in their own muck, kind of like chewing And that chewing, if you will, is like the gossiping, talking poorly about each other, but they stay herded together. And a rhino is a solitary animal. And there's a couple really unique things about rhinos. First and foremost, a rhino's skin is 2 to 3 inches thick. So thick that before modern weaponry, no arrow or dart, nothing that man had could actually pierce a rhino's skin. And so they were at the top of the food chain without necessarily being a predator. You know what I'm saying? They were untouchable. And so secondly, is that when a rhino starts charging, because of their bulk, because of their weight, they actually can't stop themselves. So it isn't until they actually meet the point of contact, their destination, that they stop. And so this book was basically asking the question, are you a rhino or are you a cow? Are you going to sit in your own muck all day, talking poorly about other people, bringing other people down? You know, it's a story of the 2 crabs in a bucket. If you put 2 crabs in a bucket, one tries to climb out, and what does the other one do? Pulls him down. Are you a cow or are you a rhino? Which means sometimes you might have to be okay being alone. Sometimes you might have to, and that doesn't mean alone from your family, but it's alone in a season where you're kind of separating some things away. You're pushing those pulls, those distractions away, and saying, right here, right now, I'm focused on this mission, this goal, where I'm going. And then do you charge as fast as you can towards it, knowing that arrows might be sticking your skin, but they're not going to stick. You're going to feel them, but they're going to fall off. They're never going to pierce that skin. And I choose to every single day wake up as a rhino, but more importantly, to raise rhinos, to raise kids that are okay in solitude, as well as okay in social aspects, because that's important. You know, we have to be social. We're human. I'm in the business of building relationships, so I gotta. But also are okay charging like never before, not listening to the darts and arrows thrown their way to reach whatever goal God has placed in their heart.
It's so incredible. And I don't want to get to that place. Ed Milet has that expression where he doesn't want to get to heaven and have the viewpoint of meeting the self that he wasn't created to be, and he is less than that man. Ooh. And so it makes me just think of like, I don't want to miss my target. And there's going to be light bulbs. I can't get rid of that light pole visual because it's so important. And the rhino could easily do that, but he won't, because he's going for impact. It might brush by, but he's like, nope, I'm going. And he's too big anyway. Exactly. And so I think as being a big human, and I don't mean that in egotistical big, I mean it in like education. I mean it in self-love. I mean it in all of the other capacities of goodness that we can safe harbor, but also flawed. Right. And so recognizing that, and that there's no destination that we're going to reach this side of heaven that is going to be the impact that I think God fully wants us to meet until we meet him face to face. So I want to give you a little bit of space because I hear you speak all the time and you never sell anything. And I love that about you. And I am so curious. Like, I know what you do only because I follow you closely, but I want you to share. I want you to share how people can come into direct community with you, how they can support not only the mission that you're on, but also support their well-being in the process.
I love that. I'm having like technical difficulties.
Well, my phone died. So if it's Instagram.
Okay. I was like, something's happening. Okay, good. We're good. First and foremost, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm very intentional with that. Because I want my heart to always be what leads and not my pocket. And I'm a businessman. My kids eat based on what business I do. And so I spend a lot of time on Clubhouse. And so, but I can tell you this, God has continued to bless me. And I think it's because I'm okay putting it in his hands. I'm okay believing that I can be abundant. And I'm okay that as he's leading me in this season to give time and energy to be a rhino on Clubhouse and give everything I have there, that everything else is going to kind of fall into place. But, however, that being said, semicolon, I don't want this alarm to go off again, so I'm just turning it off.
You're fine.
Sorry about that. This is what I think this is what I do. So basically, I help people become wealthy. And let me just explain what wealthy means. that's happy, which I'm going to change it now that you said what you said today.
Yes.
I was saying it. So I'm going to change it. It used to be happy, healthy, and financially abundant. Now I'm going to say joyous, healthy, and financially abundant.
Come on.
And that's really what I'm in the business of doing. I have a product that I sell. I have a team that I'm building. I have opportunity. However, when people come to me, my job is just simply to educate them in what it is that I have to offer. And if it works for them, great. If it doesn't, hopefully I can point you in the right direction. I'm all about that Miracle on 34th Street, Santa Claus style. Well, you can go to my Macy's, or you can go to, Henry Bendel's. Like, I'm all about that, because at the end of the day, I do believe that there's a million ways for people to make $1 million. There's a million ways for people to lose weight. There's a million ways for people to find community. As long as you're actively doing what it takes to build that community, live in a financially abundant life, be happy and healthy, rather joyous and healthy, that I'm good. And if I can point you in that direction, then I'm here for it. So at Not the Fat Dad on Instagram. Are you going to put up all my socials?
Yeah, it'll all be there.
You'll find it wherever it's going to be. I'm going to put my phone number right now, 407-792-9052. And if you heard it on camera,
rewind, start again. Get those digits, y'all. Are you serious?
407-792-9052. Literally just message Tamra and I'll know that it's you that reached out to me. But I'm in the space of keto and ketosis and changing bodies from the inside out. But thank you so much for that opportunity.
You're so
I love pitching what I do, but I don't do it on Clubhouse. So
you don't, but I love that about you. You absolutely are a heart-led leader. And I'm grateful for that example and mentorship, right? I think we get to emulate one another based on what we've been taught and how we learn and how we grow. And so that's what this is all about. And selfishly, when I have time to just dedicate an hour with people and just like, I wish you were here and we were like able to embrace, because you give the best hugs, but I am hugging you from afar, friend, and so excited to see you in a couple of weeks in Dallas for the Embrace Your Ambition conference.
And
by
hopefully
the way,
I see Gary and you will meet my wife at that event.
Yay! My hubby will be there.
And my kids will be there as well. They
awesome.
They have some cousins locally. So
okay.
They'll be playing with the cousins during the day, but you will be able to meet them.
That is awesome. Yeah, we'll be there. My B-Day is actually on Sunday, the day that I speak. And so we're taking an extra couple days for just us. So I'm excited.
Oh, nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. So you guys, make sure you get your tickets to the Embrace Your Ambition Conference, Dallas, Texas, October 14th through the 17th. And you'll get to see Alex and I in person. And I call him Alex. He goes by Alexander on Clubhouse. So just, you have to know him. Okay. I'm a family preference here. Alexander the Great.
Exactly. I appreciate that. And also, we're going to get to be sharing another stage in November.
Yes,
I'm very excited about. That's going to be.
See, I don't sell myself.
I know, I like it. That's why I had to plug it. But really, I'm excited about both conferences. You're going to get two different experiences out of both, but both are going to be life-changing and impactful.
I 100% agree.
I'm excited to be there. I mean, we're going to be with some juggernauts.
I know.
And so I'm so excited.
I am too. I cannot wait. It's been such a door opening opportunity. And it's just going to continue. Like, I literally believe that this is just the beginning for so many of us. And it's going to be one of those things we look back on and be like, remember when Clubhouse launched? And so it's really cool that it's a part of our story. And I really love it. I don't know if you knew this part, but I had done a 21-day fast of social media. And the day I came back, I had already signed up for social media for Clubhouse before I did the fast. And the day I came back was the day I entered Breakfast with Champions and got on the stage and was able to share and have been a part ever since. So it was an answered prayer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, someone who I didn't talk to for over 2 years reached out to me, said, have you heard of Clubhouse? I said, I've not. He's like, dude, you would slay. It was when you only got 2 invites. He's like,
yes,
I'm going to give it to you. I have messaged him. I can't tell you how many times to thank him. I've never heard back from him. It was like
angels.
In and out done. I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm here. I'm ready for it. So.
Really amazing. Well, I'm again honored to know you and so excited to see where God leads us. And I will help you. I will keep you accountable in not hitting those light poles.
Yes, I likewise back at you. Much love. I can't wait for our families to be together
and
for all the future that God has for us. So
love you.
Bye, guys.